Hello and welcome to Justice Losers, the most unqualified podcast exploring irrelevant questions about entertainment, namely movies, TVs, and comics. I'm your host, Preston, joined as always by my delightful co-host,
Batman.
Matt. What should people do?
People should like, people should subscribe, people should press all the positive buttons and not the negative buttons. Do the positive things and check out our Instagram highlights. That's at JustUsLosersPod.
Matt.
Preston.
What you been up to?
I watched a couple movies.
Okay.
Watched Kong Skull Island.
Oh.
And
Is it as like, it's pretty good as I thought it, as I think
yeah,
it will be?
it's pretty fun. It's like
All right.
it's like a 6.5 for me out of 10.
Okay.
It's very much just big dumb blockbuster style action movie. You know, there's just a lot of gratuitous slow motion helicopter porn in the first 30 minutes or so, which is it's really satisfying and it's really well done.
Yeah.
There's like 600 or 700 needle drop moments where they're just like, okay, we're gonna play, where they put on music, not in the scene necessarily, but like a song starts playing and
I see.
kind of picks up intensity a little bit. Call it a needle drop because like you drop the needle on the record.
All right. I'll buy it.
So many of those.
Okay.
It's like the Dutch tilts in Thor.
Oh my god.
We were talking about that last night.
I'll get back to it. I'll mention that.
We'll get back into it. But there's a lot of those. They don't all work. But yeah, it's kind of a big fun ensemble movie. You got Samuel L. Jackson as kind of the too intense war guy. You got Brie Larson as the cynical war photographer.
She was in that,
She's pretty good in it.
Okay.
Like she kind of plays I guess it's now becoming her thing where she's kind of the cocky, swaggering type, but she plays it pretty well and it works well with the character.
Okay.
She's likable. She's kind of the heart and soul of the movie in some sense, but it is very much just ensemble driven.
Right. Loki's in it.
Tom Hiddleston, he is in it. Yeah, he's kind of a sort of the Indiana Jones type almost.
Yeah.
He's like the rugged adventurer guy, and they need a guide to lead them across the island.
John C. Reilly. That's who I was thinking of, isn't it?
Also John Goodman.
John Goodman, yes. Yeah. I do see that. But I was trying to think of it was a comedy person that was in it, and it's like they're kind of the people, like he was like kind of funny because he had like the funny scene in the trailer. It was just like I don't remember anything that he's. All I remember is I thought the joke was actually kind of funny, which is rare for me in a trailer to actually think a joke is funny.
Yeah, no, he's good comedic relief. John C. Reilly is. Yeah, it's pretty solid. There are definitely some creative decisions that I think are kind of stupid. The opening scene is really fun. It's a American pilot and Japanese pilot in World War II, and they crash land on Skull Island together, and they both get out of their planes. The American pilot's like trying to shoot at the Japanese guy, and the Japanese guy's coming at him with a sword. It's goofy. It's fun. And then their fight is interrupted when Kong shows up, and they show Kong in that in like that pre-credits moment. And I think that's too early because when he actually shows up on the island is awesome.
Okay.
Like goosebump raising awesome. The first time he shows up when you actually see him in the main movie.
Yeah.
But it kind of hurts the effect to have it early.
That's a bummer.
But I mean, no, it's solid. I think it does a really good job of making the humans feel small.
Okay.
Which is
important for this.
In these kind of monster movies. And it does that not by making the monsters really big and by making their clashes so epic that the humans are non-players. It's by meaning the monsters attend to the humans. They focus in on the humans. And the humans don't have anything they can do. It's really hard for them to fight back.
Gotcha.
There's some pretty good kind of horror moments. There's like
do the tones clash at all? Like the horror and the comedy, like do they?
A little bit. Not as much as in certain other movies we'll get to in a little bit. It generally works. It's just not spectacular.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'd recommend if you're looking for kind of a fun movie. It is a fairly brutal PG-13, I'll say.
Okay.
One point during the helicopter porn scene, a guy is thrown and hits like the windshield of a helicopter and then is pulled up into the turbines and blood splatter goes everywhere. And it's great, but it's like, how could they get away with that in a PG-13 movie?
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, no, it's fun. Recommend.
What else have I done? I finished Man in the High Castle, finally.
Yeah.
Through my list of shows that I've needed to finish.
Yep.
So you hadn't finished it yet.
I'm through the end of season 3.
You're through the end of season 3, which is where I was. And Carter, our friends Carter and AK and our friends Brendan and Emily have been harassing me to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
So I finally finished it, and I looked at the ratings. Sometimes I'll look at the ratings of a show, like of episodes coming up, to kind of like set my expectations of like, is this going to be generally good or bad?
Mm-hmm.
Ratings go up to like, they peak at like 9.1 for the penultimate episode, and then it's like a 5.6 for the last episode. And I totally get it. It's all of the character arcs that have been setting up from the beginning, like just characters' loyalties and their like relationships all have these like interesting dynamics. Like I've always really liked the John Smith family,
right?
What's happening with that, and like and then Inspector Keto has been like a fantastic character, Chief Inspector Keto. Mm-hmm. And then I can tell, I didn't tell you that because we talked about this a little bit before.
Right.
But I didn't mention this. I can tell that they needed a season between 3 and 4, because I know that they were told they were canceled before writing season 4. And so they did a year time jump.
Okay.
That just misses so many interesting things.
Yeah.
There's 2 specific characters that I can very clearly identify that they had a whole season of a story that they wanted to explore. At the end of season 3, a person goes to a place that is new to the season. Mm-hmm. Or new to the show.
Mm-hmm.
And they could have done so much interesting stuff with that, like just the character experiencing this new place in a way that could have like really helped the audience learn about this new place. But at the beginning of season 4, they're back home.
Boy, I sure had this great adventure over in this other place.
Yeah, and it's like, do you see the ramifications? Like, because the story afterwards is also interesting. It's kind of this, like, they're, like, how they're coming to terms with this whole thing, which is an interesting story for 3 episodes. And then they move on.
Yikes.
Another character, this is a little spoilery, basically goes from beginning of Star Wars Episode 4 Han Solo to end of Episode 6 Han Solo, going from like the rough smuggler who doesn't care, like he's going to take advantage of both sides, blah, blah, blah,
right,
to one of the leading generals of the rebellion in the time jump. And is explained away by literally him saying like, when you went away, I put my head into the work or whatever, and now I'm this guy. And it's just like,
sure.
What? Where's the character development?
In season 3.5.
Exactly. I could tell it was very obvious that they were just missing a season.
Yep.
Which is also a problem because for a lot of other characters, they weren't missing a season. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, I don't know. I don't know what they would have done with these other characters because everyone else it's kind of natural-ish.
Right.
But I don't know. That was my biggest problem right off the bat. I was just like, I feel like I just missed a season.
Mm-hmm.
But back to my original thing of all of the characters, their character arcs have phenomenal climaxes. Like there's a scene with Chief Inspector Keto that I was literally, my heart was pounding. Mm-hmm. And I actually stood up and shouted at certain things, not good or bad. I'm not going to tell you. Like, I don't know where that's going to go. Mm-hmm. But like, I was so invested in the character arc, and like the climax was like so well done. Mm-hmm. Whether or not you agree with it, it was so well done. I literally shouted. And then same with like other characters. Like I was literally cheering at things happening. Mm-hmm. And then the last season or like the last couple episodes, it just takes a left turn. I'm like, oh, okay, it's still really interesting. And then the second to last episode is just fantastic. Mm-hmm. The last episode, everything fizzles. Like they didn't know how to finish it out.
Yeah.
And one character decides to go a direction that no one really expected, or that the trajectory they were on through season 3, it didn't end the same way. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know, it's really hard to describe without spoiling things.
Right.
It's just, God, they Game of Thrones season 8 it, where it's just like, none of that made sense. I hated that. And then the last shot, like the way they resolve it, vague spoilers, not really, because they leave the very end is intended to be ambiguous. It is ambiguous.
Okay.
But for a show that for 4 seasons answered all your questions very definitively, it doesn't fit. It feels wrong. Because the show answers your questions. You're like, oh, here's this thing. Where does this come from? And they're like, from here. This is in fact what is happening. And at the very end, it's just like, is the sound that I can give that's just like how the season ends.
Very descriptive. Yes, I understand.
It's just it's vague. It doesn't make sense. I don't know where they would go from any conceivable way I can imagine where they would go from there has nothing to do with what the show has been doing.
Right.
But yeah, no, that's what I've been up to. A whole bunch of stuff.
Cool.
Wholeheartedly recommend everyone watch Man in the High Castle just because it ends like it's. If you've got the time to get engaged in the relationships with the characters and their character arcs and like acknowledging their character arcs, one big problem is that like when one of the character arcs tend to get really exciting. Like the main character's character arc gets really exciting and really interesting, and then they change, and then they don't. In the next episode, they just don't even go to hers, and I'm just like, I want to know more about her. Yeah. Go back.
Yeah, that was my problem with it. At least up through the end of season 3, is there's just too many things going on for it to really settle in, and so it loses weight narratively and thematically.
Yeah, it does do that. It with the last season, it brings them all together really poorly. You're just like, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah. And like, it kind of like takes advantage of certain things that have happened in past episodes and past seasons to help bridge the gap between character arcs. But it still feels flimsy in some ways. And then the ending of one character's arc is just it's the only way they could have done it, but it's not good. Like, it's just, you'll know what I mean when you see it.
Okay.
Like, you'll get to the end of a character arc and go like, I mean, I guess. Will basically be your reaction. But yeah. So that's what I'm up to. Let's talk about news.
Let's do some news.
Let's news some do's.
All right, I can throw some Godzilla vs. Kong numbers at you.
Oh,
I've got some numbers for Godzilla vs. Kong because it's out and it's actually making money. Okay, this is via Box Office Mojo as of today, which is the 17th?
Yeah.
17th.
Yes.
Yeah. The domestic box office, it has made just under $75 million.
Okay.
International, it has made about $268 million for that grand worldwide total of $343.5 million, give or take.
I mean, it's making money. I can't imagine it costs more than that.
Pushing towards profit territory.
Yeah.
It's, I think, past Tenet at this point, or will pass Tenet in the next couple of days.
Naturally,
for highest grossing pandemic movie.
Yeah.
So my question has been, is this sort of a dead cat bounce of people are excited to go see a big spectacle movie in the theaters, and so this one's going to outperform what we should expect? Or is this the baseline now?
I think that's what I think it's a dead cat bounce.
Okay.
I think it's literally just like us. Mm-hmm. If we had been watching movies, Dune and Batman and Black Widow were all coming out within the next 6 months, we wouldn't go see this, but we're going to go see it next week.
Yeah.
Next week? 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't think it's really, I don't think the profit is going to reflect its quality.
Yeah. And I think that Hollywood's probably going to take the wrong lesson and say, oh, movies are back. Movies can still make money. Let's throw everything at theaters.
Well, I mean, that's something with Dune. Like, it's still, when is it set to come out?
Like November, give or take.
I think that's going to be, I think they're going to, I think with the rate of vaccinations and things opening up and things being better, and with this one making money, I think the theater side of Dune is going to have a really good argument to release only, because they're trying to get it released only in theaters, right?
Or they're
trying to at least compromise that.
The non-WB production company people and some of the creative minds behind it are really pushing for a theaters only release.
Yeah.
The WB at this point is still wanting to do their HBO Max simultaneous release, and they honestly, given Godzilla vs. Kong's numbers, despite a simultaneous streaming release, they have a better argument than maybe they deserve.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's... How do you feel? Well, let's talk about this a little bit.
Okay.
I don't think we've had a chance to actually sit down and talk about it. How do you feel about this idea of doing simultaneous releases and stuff?
I think it was probably inevitable all along.
Yeah, we've had a vague discussion about like how theaters will never die, but
yeah, they're going to get more selective. I think we'll probably get to a point where they're just going to chop off the bottom half of the demand curve and jack up prices on tickets a fair amount. Because there's people like us that are still going to go see some of these bigger movies in theaters.
Like, we're going to see Dune in the theater, and we're going to see Batman in the theater.
Yeah.
Or we're going to walk into the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah, like, you could... Don't listen to this movie studios, but you could jack up ticket prices to like $25 a ticket, and we're still seeing those in theaters. Yeah. But that might be the only way they're going to maintain a profit margin at this point.
Yeah, it's becoming... paralleled with my whole spiel about oversaturation of the market of movies. It's like people go to see $10 tickets every 2 weeks. Or you're getting to that point where in order for people to go see your movie, people will do that every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Or you can jack up the prices, and people aren't going to do that. That was my point. Sorry.
Right.
People aren't going to do that.
Right.
So you're still going to get people going 2 to 3 times a week. Marvel is kind of doing that thing where they're pushing people to go a little bit more. Spring break, beginning of summer, end of summer, Christmas. Those are the 4 points that you go see movies. And if you jack the price, people will still go on those special occasions. But you can still put your movies in front of people and still get viewership if you put it on the streaming services, because more people are willing to pay the annual year for HBO Max to see all these movies.
Right.
But you will then, like you said, get selective. Chop off the bottom, get more selective, put the big ones out there.
Yeah.
Marvel stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which I'm fine with. I'm totally fine with seeing, like, I would like to have just seen Godzilla vs. Kong at home on streaming services, but I really just want to go to a theater.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the smaller indie movies, the kinds of things that don't need the spectacular screen and sound necessarily, those are going to eventually just be streaming releases entirely, pretty much.
How do we keep those movies? How do we justify those indie movies?
I mean, they'll be enough of a moneymaker and a presence, and part of it just comes with the awards prestige. I mean, Netflix has been talking about after the Oscar nominations were released a couple weeks ago, which we got to watch some of those movies, do a Minnesota on that at some point. But when those dropped, their viewership numbers on movies like Mank and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom that were nominated for several things skyrocketed. Yeah. So there is still a prestige of having these kinds of movies and trying to compete and make high quality indie stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that streaming services at this point, at least, can argue that's beneficial for their model.
But how much would they be losing if they don't have if they're not in front of people when someone wants to go see a movie? So there are people who are just not interested in superhero movies.
Right.
So that's a lot of movies that just cut out people's interest, but they're like, they still want to go to the theaters 2 or 3 times a week or a month, year. Got it.
That's the time period.
Then they're stuck with the only ones that are in the theaters so they lose that ability to go watch movies in the theaters.
So I think there is an in-between type of movie. Like, not everything is Lady Bird. Not everything is Endgame.
Right.
There's in-between movies, stuff like thinking Hidden Figures is a good example.
Yeah.
It's accessible. It's the sort of family movie that you all go see, but it's not necessarily a big spectacle, but it's the kind of thing where you can turn some money if you put it in theaters.
Right.
You'll get it's a good, like, family Saturday afternoon kind of movie.
I'd argue Blade Runner 2049 is kind of in that middle ground. It's not like upper end of it.
Yeah,
but it's not like because it had some star power. It had some, but it was mostly a cult following.
Yep.
Because Blade Runner's not a fantastic movie, but it's got a cult following.
Yeah.
Because it's not Star Wars.
Right.
And Marvel and.
Right. It's much more cerebral and ideas driven.
And I think Dune is going to be a similar way, where it's not really one of those giant movies. It's got a ton of star power, which is going to help.
Yeah. And they're really playing up the sci-fi action elements in the trailer.
But I don't think it's going to be really one of those things that everyone's going to go see. I think a lot of people are just going to I didn't know Dune was this popular of a thing before seeing the trailer and going, "Oh my God, that looks so cool," and then reading the book.
Yeah. I worry that Dune's going to lose a whole bunch of money and then they're not going to actually finish it and make the second part.
I don't think it's going to lose money. I think they've got so much star power, and I think that I keep throwing star power in. Star power! There's so much going for it. Yeah. And I think if they play their cards right, and I think they have so far. They've halted their advertising.
Yep.
But the moment they drop another trailer, you can be sure I'm going to be word of mouthing that shit. Like I will tell everybody.
Yep. Put it on the Twitter.
Put it on the Twitter. I'm so ready for that for the next trailer and the next Batman trailer.
Oh,
dude.
Comic-Con's going to be a good time.
Hey guys, Preston here. We could only fit about 15 to 20 minutes of this episode on video, so if you want to listen to any more what you've been up to's or news things that we talked about, you can listen to the full audio version. You can find it on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and any other app that you listen to podcasts on. Thanks for watching!